Just a couple other events that are happening in case you wonder what you should be doing on Friday night. Ian was just telling me something that I have never heard of before in my life. But I think you should all try it just so you can report back to me. Chicken nugget yoga. I know nothing more about it than that. But you should check that out at 7 on Friday. And then after that, the Board Gamers Club is hosting an event in the library. So if you like to play board games, Friday night is your shot. Head over to the library from 8 to midnight. Today, our topics that we're talking about are a couple of kind of really practical topics that are very, very strongly linked to student success, okay? So all of the people who research what makes college students successful have identified a whole bunch of things that if students can do these things well, then they're more apt to do well in college, all right? So those two topics are time management and setting goals. If you guys can join us in the middle 3 sections, that'd be great. We're going to continue to use that strategy this year. So anyways, time management, setting goals. And so we have 2 students who are actually going to be doing our presentations today. So I'm very excited to have them be able to share with you from their own practical experience. And then during your discussion time, you'll actually have time to be processing through this, and you'll actually be asked to very specifically write some goals today in your discussion time. So you want to be sure you're listening well so that you're able to go ahead and do that with your group after the presentations. So to get us started, one of our peer advisors is going to be coming up to talk about time management. So Marcella Wilson is a junior here at Cornerstone. She's a communications major. She's also the peer advisor for the communications division. She's a student worker on campus. So please welcome her up as she comes to share with you some practical, good advice about time management.
Thanks. All right. Hi, guys. How are you doing? Thank you. I'm doing good. It's so weird to hear my voice on mic. Wow. Okay, so before I begin, actually, I want to take a moment to have you guys imagine your schedules. So what are you guys doing? Like, are you taking, like, a lot of naps? Obviously, you're going to classes. Are you hanging out with friends? Like, so I'm going to give you a moment, and I kind of want you guys to visualize your schedule in your head, if you guys could do that. Okay, so hopefully now that you have your schedule in mind and not what's for dinner, what are you guys doing? So, like, are you taking a nap instead of, going out with your friends? Are you hanging out with friends instead of doing homework? Like, where are your priorities? I know that's kind of, like, heavy to think, like, what your priorities are, but one thing that college will teach you over these next 4 years is how to use your time wisely and where your priorities are within that. So before we begin, time management is hard, guys. And have you guys heard the old saying that time management is like riding a bike, but that bike is on fire, and everything is on fire because it is college. If not, it's still early for you, and hopefully after this presentation, you guys won't have to hear about that, So time management, whether you are successful in college is going to heavily rely on how well you manage your time. And a good part of that revolves around being organized. And it's also about knowing yourself. And I know that's sounds really deep, and you might think why do I need to know myself? I know myself just fine. But I mean in the sense of how long can you guys study before you guys need a break? What are your strengths? What things you need to do to best study? And what does that mean? Because each of us is different. And like I said, time management is hard. Did I finish this presentation an hour ago? Maybe, but here I am. So again, the foundation of time management is laid in organization. So that's just figuring out, obviously, when everything is due. So fun fact, I have a thing called a syllabus binder. I print out my syllabuses or syllabi for each class, and I keep it in a binder, and I carry it with me everywhere. Just something to refer to. That may not be your style, but that's fine. But I feel so old saying this, but I don't know if you guys did this in like high school, if they like made you keep a planner. But like having a paper planner or writing it on your phone, like that is important, and it is so useful and something that you definitely need to do. Also, keeping your class papers separated. Just this weekend, I went through my backpack and I was like, whoa, where did these papers come from? I kind of was just shoving them in there, but it's just really important to keep them separated, because the more often you have to separate them for each classes, that is such a big time waster. And if you do it right the first time, you won't have to do it again. Classic mom saying, right? Next thing, make a plan. So, it's never too early to start figuring out a plan and how you're going to accomplish everything. So, for example, some classes like World Civ, some of you guys may have mixed feelings about that. Yes, I love World Civ. That's one of my favorite classes. But guess what? They have weekly quizzes. Some comm classes, it's heavily just papers, and those are like every 2 weeks or every week. How are you guys figuring out when everything is due, and just making a plan? So are you going to do that on Friday? Are you going to do it on Thursday? I personally love doing all my homework on the weekend and kind of just chilling throughout the week, and it helps me better prepare for unexpected things. And again, having a plan allows you, again, to be prepared for those unexpected things. So if your friend comes up to you and is like, hey, cool Bible study happening tonight, and you're like, oh, frick, like, I don't know if I can, like, go to that because, I don't know my schedule. But if you plan ahead and you have a plan, then it'll be easy to prepare for the unexpected. Also, I have a rule of thumb under there. And so for every 1 hour of lecture time, you should have 2 hours of study. And I know some of you are thinking, like, 2 hours, that's a lot of my time. But that includes homework, because when you're doing your homework, you're reaffirming those concepts that you learned in class. And yeah. So also, another part, divide and conquer. And kind of like was announced, like, this is stuff we all know. So it's nothing you guys like haven't heard, but just kind of hearing it makes it easier. So divide and conquer. So that's breaking up larger projects and obviously into smaller, more manageable chunks. Because guys, some of these exams are cumulative finals and they're the worst. But the more that you can like break them up and better study for them and spread it out over a period of days or weeks, it makes it just that much better. So another thing under divide and conquer is kind of what I talked about earlier, which is like knowing yourself. So how long can you study at once before you need a break? Personally, during major time crunches, I know that I can study hard and focus for 2 hours straight before I need like a 15-minute break. That's just me. Some of my friends, they can only study for 15 minutes before they're like, you know what, I need a 15-minute break. But you know what? That's totally fine because we are all different. It's just about knowing yourself and playing off your strengths and just going that way. And also, another big part of that is knowing what time of day you're most productive. So I'm a night owl, like I know probably most of you are. So like play with that strength. I know that's kind of not like against stuff, but like knowing when you're most alert and productive and taking advantage of that. Like take an extra 20 minutes at night and just crank out some homework if that's when you feel like you're most productive, or in the morning, vice versa. Just finding out what works for you. The next section is mix it up. So some people think that if you just really lazily write your notes in class, I'll go back in my dorm and I'll rewrite them really neat, and they'll help me learn, and it'll be really good. No, that is not going to be helpful. Like, I'm so strong against that. If you didn't learn it the first time, that way you're not going to learn it the second time. Like, don't reread a chapter 3 times because you're like, well, I didn't understand it the first time. If I reread it, then, that'll be helpful. Probably not. Mix it up. So say you were in the lecture and you're like, I have no idea what he's saying. I don't even like his voice. Like, I wasn't even paying attention. Maybe focus a little more on the chapter. Say you read the chapter and you know what, like, I don't understand the chapter. Well, figure out what you're not getting and go from there. Like, honestly, sometimes I watch YouTube videos for my classes that just break it down in simpler concepts with like little cartoons, and I'm entertained and I'm learning. Like, it's just great that way. So just mix it up and again, just know yourself. Figure out what works for you. The next thing is minimize distractions. So be smart with your time. Your time is precious, especially in college. There's so much going on, so much you want to do, so much to get involved in, and that's great. But if you're not being practical with your time, then you're not going to be able to do all those fun things. So practice self-control and time constraints. So that, again, just relates back to how long can I focus? How long do my breaks need to be for, me to be on top of things? Putting your phone away, like, that is such a big thing for me. Like, I love to be on my phone. Like, I'll be studying, and all of a sudden, I got a notification, and then I'm on Facebook for a half hour, and I'm like, where did the time go? So just turning off your phone and putting it on your bed, or doing whatever you have to do to just minimize those distractions, and again, take breaks. Which leads us to get rest. One thing that I think is greatly overlooked when it comes to time management is rest. Being aware of what you need and what your body needs is so important, because if you're tired, you're not going to be able to do homework. You're not even going to be able to have fun. Like, it doesn't help anyone. Just self-care. So an example of this is my first year of college, I was getting 3 to 5 hours of sleep. I was going so strong. I was like, I can do everything. Like, I can be fully involved in student life. I mean, I can get good grades. Like, it'll be great. But I burned out so fast. I was really sick my second semester, and it just was not a good situation. And one thing I've just really these next years, my sophomore and now my junior year, is just taking that time to like rest. Like, how many hours of sleep do you need to like feel really good and just alert and ready to go? Like, that is so important. So the next thing is ask for help when it's needed. If you don't ask for help, people don't know. I know some of you are like, well, obviously I'm struggling. People will come and they'll ask me for help. No, you have to ask for it, especially in college. Like, you guys are getting older and you're more in control of your lives. And with that comes the responsibility of knowing your limits and knowing when to ask for help. Cornerstone staff and faculty, we want to see you succeed. Like, we're here for you, and I totally get it. Like, I'm literally living your shoes. Like, being a student and working, I know like most of you are on a sport, like, it is hard, and sometimes you need help. So like the tutoring, there's tutoring, writing center, scheduling, internship help, the well, it's not on here, you can't see it, but the well is a really great resource. I'm pretty sure I've heard that you guys heard about that, but it's really great if you're feeling overwhelmed and want to talk. And a lot of these resources are free, and personally, I've used most of these, and they've been just really great for me during my time here. Ask for help. And then lastly, guys, take time to celebrate. Like, college is a great, fun time. Like, there's so much going on, and there's so much to do, and even, like, with time management, it can be so overwhelming. Like I said, did I finish this presentation an hour ago? Maybe, but I got it done, Wow, thank you. And there's going to be times where you guys will do things last minute. Like, that's just what it is, because there's just so much going on in your lives. But as long as you're getting it done and you're trying and you're working hard, like, we just ask you to do your best, and your best is all you can do, and your best is what God wants you to do, and he's like always rooting for you, and so are we. So yeah, take time to like celebrate and just figure out what works for you and know yourselves. I know you guys will do great. I know there's a lot of bright people in here, and you all are bright and have like great futures. So I'm so excited to be working with you guys and being your guys' peer advisor. And I really hope to see you guys, and I hope you guys ask for help. So yeah, that's kind of time management.
Thanks, Marcella. I do want to tattle on her just a little bit. She may have been finalizing her presentation recently. However, I made her turn the bulk of it into me 2 days ago, so she really was ahead of the game. She did plan ahead as well. So I hope that you appreciated her insights and her tips on some ways that you can work to manage your time well. So we're going to build on that with our next topic, and Kyla's going to come up and talk about setting goals, all right? So maybe some of the goals that you need to set have something to do with how you manage your time. I thought that these topics did go well together so that you can kind of build from one to the other and think about just kind of some strategies or habits that you might need to be working on to make sure you're going to be successful. This time of year is right when the rubber seems to hit the road, right? I would imagine that you're sort of realizing college is serious. Tests are happening, quizzes are happening, papers are due, and it will continue to build this semester. So these habits, hopefully these topics, I hope that you're finding them timely as well. So Kyla's going to come up. She's going to talk about goal setting. She's a junior elementary education major, and she's also the peer advisor for the education division. So if you have questions about scheduling, resumes, navigating being a teacher ed major, she is a great resource for you. She's a student worker as well, in addition to her work as a peer advisor. So she's going to share just some steps to actually creating goals for yourself, which again, you're going to need to do in your group time right after this. So it may not be a bad idea to jot down some notes if you feel like you need help remembering that. So welcome her up as she shares her presentation.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, guys. They give you a lot of things when you have to do a presentation, and I have very small hands, so like she said, I am an education major, so you're going to see some of those practices. So you guys have just been sitting for 15 minutes. So I'm actually going to make you guys stand up right now, stretch a little bit, get your brain moving again. We like to call these brain breaks in the education world. So just kind of stretch a little bit, feel the room. It's really exciting. All right, give somebody a high five next to you and go ahead and take a seat again. You all are so excited about Terra Firma, I know it. All right, so we just talked about time management, and there was a lot of truth to what Marcella talked about. And I know you guys have probably heard these topics before, time management, goal setting, but there's also a reason that they're having students share them, these topics with you guys, because we've been where you are, and we've made mistakes. Straight up, I've screwed up a lot of times, but through this, I've learned a lot, and I've been able to, just gain some insight that I really want to share. So we're going to talk about SMART goals. By a raise of hand, who has heard of a SMART goal? I have. I'm an education major. We talk a lot about these. So who has written one? I've also written some. Smaller hand. Who's finished one? Very few of you have finished a SMART goal. Everybody has a set of goals, whether it's a SMART goal or not. They can be educational goals. They could be relational goals of what you want to do in your life, big scheme. So what we're going to talk about a little bit about a SMART goal, there's a reason that people keep talking about these, is because we're going to look at what it constantly takes to achieve a goal. And a goal is actually defined by Webster's, by which your effort is directed at. So what does this effort look like? How do you find the motivation? How do you find the time management to add one more thing to your to-do list? So what I want to encourage you is if you have any goal, you look at it from the perspective you have control over. There's a lot of things in this world we don't have control over. But when you're looking at a goal and you can take control and you can kind of center yourself about what you want to do, it should be a sharpening of your skills and not just checking something off of a list. So the very first letter in our acronym is S for specific. Here you really want to think about your big picture. So Art Prize is happening right now, and you're going to see a lot of different art. Like even around our campus, you'll see some art, like these stained glass windows. They're absolutely beautiful. But that was the big picture. When they started designing these things, they didn't know exactly how they were going to do it all. They didn't know the steps they were going to take. They just knew they wanted to create something beautiful. So that's what I want to encourage you. Your first step in your goal is to be specific about something. For me, it's really challenging to finish education in 4 years. But I knew coming into college that I wanted to graduate in 4 years and have my student teaching be included in that 4 years. So I didn't know what I was going to do when I had to do that. When I had to sit down and make a 4-year plan and shave off an entire semester, that was a real daunting task. But instead of just like being super overwhelmed because then you just shut down, I chose to take a step back and just realize the big picture. I was like, 4 years. I have 4 years to sharpen these skills and see what will happen. It's easier said than done. I know it is, but I don't know. The next goal, or the next letter in a SMART goal is measurable. You want to be able to see progress being made. Some of you track people, cross country, a lot of running, woohoo, go you. I tried to get into it, haven't run in a week and a half, but that's okay. But when you run and you set a new goal, like a personal record or something, you're measuring something, you have time. And not every goal is going to be super time-oriented. Maybe you will have deadlines, or maybe you will have maybe just the quality of something. But you want it to be measurable because you won't be able to see the progress you've made. You won't be able to see how you've actually improved yourself if you're just going in blindly. And it's like, well, hopefully this will work. So be productive in planning and accountable to yourself and others. I think one of the biggest helps that I had when I had a goal was I reached out to other people and I was like, hey, I'm trying to accomplish this thing. How can you help me do this? How can what you know in your strengths help me strengthen my strengths? And there's a lot about that because you're now somebody else is aware of your goal and they're not going to let you down. And if that person lets you down, find somebody else to keep you accountable. Because accountability helps you break down that big picture of what you wanted to do. So when I wanted to graduate in 4 years, I met with my advisor, and she helped me break down the big picture, and she focused more on those details. She focused more on the brush strokes and all of the layers and classes and scheduling. And so it was measurable. It was something that I was able to look at the quality of and realize how to break it down and how to meet that next step. The next letter is attainable. Marcella touched about this in time management of just knowing yourself. You guys have done StrengthsFinder, and I Focus 2, I think you guys have worked on a little bit. Of you're hearing a lot about, who are you? It's college, find yourself, you're a great person. But that's really hard to do when there's so many different influences coming into your life right now. And it seems very overwhelming, and it's hard to see how something so big can be so attainable. But what that means is find an organizational system that works for you. So when I'm planning something, I hate technology. I do. I don't know how you guys just put it in your phone and then it magically shows up again and you do it. I don't get how you do that. That's incredible. But if you looked at my planner, my old paper planner, I guarantee you would want to cry because it's just so crazy. I have terrible handwriting and it's just all over the place. But I know that it makes sense to me. I know when things have to get done by then. So find something that you're comfortable with. It's not whatever's trendy or whatever your mom does, because if I had to do what my mom does, nothing would ever get done because she hardly gets it done. But that's okay because it works for her. So it makes it attainable when you're comfortable with it. Like if I had to use my phone to schedule everything, I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I would feel overwhelmed again, and I don't know, I just really encourage you to find something that's comfortable for you because it's your goal. So the next letter is we have relevant. Get rid of distractions. A lot of things come into your life, whether that is a new relationship or if it's you decide to switch your major and you don't know what to do, you don't know the next step to take. Make sure you just kind of focus back in on that big picture. You want to make it specific. Those little details are going to creep in and just cause you a lot of stress and anxiety. And honestly, when you focus in on what, kind of in chapel, she was talking about what is God's plan for your life, and just kind of tying that back in. Like if you're relevant to God's purpose and strengths for the strengths He has provided you with, it will become very relevant, and everything you can kind of see how it all fits together. So when you get rid of those distractions and just really find what you're passionate about, it's entertaining and it's fun to kind of set goals and try to manage these and do these things. And lastly, the last letter we have is time-bound. So it kind of ties in with measurable, of how when you were measuring something, you wanted to see if you can finish it in a timely manner, if it's the quality of something, you just want to be able to see that you've sharpened your skills and you've actually done something with progress. But here's the biggest thing. You guys are stepping into a new role of responsibility. So if you set something, if you set a deadline, stick to it. Especially as you get more into a career-centered world, it's being responsible, it's being accountable towards other people, and people are just going to start expecting it of you. It's not going to be this, unfortunately, I wish we could live in a world that just was full of grace and people would be like, hey, we'll get it next time. But that's not the truth, okay? So if you set a deadline, if you set a goal, reach out to people. Say, help them keep you accountable in this. Find something that works for you. Paper, technology, maybe you really like sticky notes or colorful, or you just want it to be simple and black and white. Find what works for you. Think of the big picture, but then break it down. And if you set a deadline, just stick to it. And because when you stick to it, and if you don't, it's going to be just so easy to just throw your goal out the window. And then what was the point of doing anything? So everything should have every step you take should have progress and purpose behind it, because that's what we're made to do. Like, we aren't created to just be idle beings. Like, God's given us a purpose, and we need to steward that and steward it well. And I know you guys have heard this before, and again, it's really repetitive, but as a student, like, I just really want you guys to know that what you do here matters. There's a reason Cornerstone talks about this and like pours into areas about this, because it's important and it matters. And so I really want, out of everything we've talked about today, just know that what you do matters and how you go about that matters. So these goals you guys are about to write right now, I really want you to focus in on just like finding something you're passionate about. Find somebody you can be accountable with, whether that's your roommate or your advisor, maybe your Terra Firma leader, and really just try to set a goal that will be practical to you and worth your while, because if not, why even do it? I'm going to pass it back off to Shannon.
All right. Again, I hope that you were able to just pick up a thing or two out of these talks that you find useful. And as Kyla was saying, and I mentioned earlier, we are going to ask you in your discussion groups to do some actual writing things down. All of the research about goal setting that is out there says that a goal that is not written down is just a wish, okay? So you could think that you have all your goals really aligned really well in your head, but I'm saying if it's not written down somewhere or typed into some device, it's probably not quite, it's too vague if it's out there and if it's not written down, okay? So we're going to give you a few minutes as you get started in your groups to work on your own, and then you can share that either with your whole group or one-on, like with just a couple people in your group, however your group decides to handle that. So when you are creating your goal, I don't care if you write it on paper, you can type it into your computer, your phone, something though that you'll want to keep track of, because in your discussion questions at some point later than this semester, we'll be bringing this back up. Hey, remember your goal that you wrote a couple of weeks ago? How are you doing? What progress are you making? So in addition to writing your goal, we're also going to ask you to think about how are you going to be starting to integrate this behavior into your life. It's not just a matter of writing a goal once. You have to have a process of evaluating that, checking in, revising, because really, honestly, your goals may change over time, right? Both of these ladies mentioned finding things that work for you, and sometimes that does take a little bit of trial and error, especially as new students, either just as new college students or students who are new to Cornerstone. There probably is a fair amount of, well, I tried that, but it's not working for me. I need to tweak this, that sort of thing. So we know that there's a lot of that happening in this first year, and so how do your goals speak to that or respond to that, okay? So we'll move at this point into small groups. So group leaders, if you haven't picked up your questions, they're here up front on the speakers. Just before you go, I do just want to comment a little bit on group dynamics, okay? As I've been wandering around and kind of taking notice of groups throughout this process, I do just want to comment on the fact that a group relates better to other members in the group if you can all see each other. Okay, so sitting in a line is probably not the best group dynamic. So I know that there's some awkward spaces around here, but please find a place where you can all kind of sit in a circle so that you can look at each other all right? So I think that will help improve your group dynamics. But go ahead and get started.